Today's guest, Robin, spent 10 years finishing a 6-year degree. He's a trained life coach. And on the 20-minute drive home from celebrating that degree with his brother, he started counting what procrastination had actually cost him in his life, the relationships, his career, his finances, and his health. And by the time he pulled into his driveway, he was furious. He wasn't furious at the circumstances, but he was furious at himself. He was a life coach who didn't have the cure. That moment was his catalyst because it sent him into 900 research studies on procrastination. And what he found and what he shares on today's episode will change how you think about it. He also gets the reward for the most energetic, fun-loving guest I've ever had. And I appreciate you coming on the show, Robin. And I'm excited for you to listen to this. And we're going to dive into all of this. And my one ask is that if this show is a part of your routine, can you please help it become a part of somebody else's routine and share this episode with at least one person who needs it? Let's dive in. All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Mind of George Show. We are in the home studio because, I don't know, I'm just more comfortable here. And I am excited about today's guest, but I got to give you an overview. He's known as the procrastination slayer. Okay, that's how I know him. And I just had the absolute pleasure of being a guest on his podcast, which is all about getting people results. And so when I say that you are in for a treat today, we are joined by my friend Robin. He is the procrastination slayer. His podcast is called the GoalBusters Podcast, which, by the way, they're like 5 to 6 minute episodes. It was one of the funnest things that I've done, but I've listened to quite a few of them and they are really good. So if you need a quick hit of like expertise, productivity, mindset, or any other topics he covers, you have to go listen. He's got an incredible book. I'm about halfway through it, called GetResultsology, the science of getting stuff done. And he is obsessed with productivity and results because he's had his own story. So his goal is to help entrepreneurs beat procrastination and follow through without burning out. So he had a facepalm moment in 2019. It took him, and I know we're going to talk about this, 10 years to finish a 6-year home study degree, which then sparked a 3-year deep dive into studies and science-backed books on procrastination. And so he started as the client and then he became the teacher. And now he helps his people achieve like 33% more of their goals with brain power and brain science, not willpower. So I'm excited. He's a hoot. He's going to say all of this. He also told me that he will take over the whole show and talk the whole time. And I was like, you are completely welcome because I had a blast on your show. And so without further ado, Robin, welcome to the show, my friend.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm absolutely delighted to be here. Thank you so much. That's a hell of a build-up. Thank you. That's very kind.
You're so welcome. Now you got to deliver.
You set me up. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I love it. And you know what? People already are going to love you because the accent. They just listen to this monotone, Montana voice all day, and you just bring the humor and the cred. I think you have to be so funny and so cheery because you live where it's so cloudy every single day. Like the sun doesn't come out.
Absolutely true. Do you know, it's been raining here every single day for an entire... Don't get me started. Just don't get me started. I often threaten my guests. I say, if you run out of things to say, I'm going to talk about the weather. And it's funny, they never do.
No, we don't ever want to talk about the weather. But you know what's so funny? Because this is my podcast. I just learned a completely useless, interesting fact. If you're listening to this, Robin blew my mind because before we hit record, I was like, hey, I need a minute. I need to go to the little boy's room, or as you call it, the loo. And he's like, did you know? And I was like, what? And he's like, room 100. And I didn't get it yet. And he's like, back in the day, it was inappropriate to say you were going to the washroom. So they put the number 100 above the door. So it's called room 100. And that's why we call it the loo. So now all of you are up to speed on a useless piece of information that you can use at like a dinner party or something along those lines. So thank you for sharing that with me, Robin.
Yeah, that's hotel room 100. So every
hotel
floor
room 100
had a room 100 on it. And it was like, oh, I don't know anyone staying in there.
I love it.
Not for more than 20 minutes at a time anyway.
I love it. So, for everybody listening, I realized that I haven't in 700 episodes have a productivity expert on the show because I geek out about productivity. I talk about it all the time with your, wedge of expectations and consistency over intensity, all these things. But I'm kind of more excited to sit here and listen to Robin today because the book has been incredible. And what I love is it's all based on science. And not only has he, taught it, but he studied it first. And it's so applicable and it's so spot on. And I think now we're living in an age where productivity used to be easy, but now we have so many things competing for our attention that I think the baseline of productivity is also looking at where are we spending our time and what are we trying to be productive with. And so I'm excited to kind of unpack this. So, Robin, the thing that I want to ask is before we even dive into the show, you and I were having a conversation before the show started. And I feel like a lot of times people don't understand what productivity really, really is, right? I see people checking lists and doing all these things, but I'm curious because you coach so many people through this. So I'm curious if like the end of the show, when everyone's listened, do they like have a true understanding of what productivity is? They know the science behind it. Like, what do you think is possible for them as an entrepreneur?
Okay, so thank you for that great introduction, and I hope I live up to your expectations and your audience. So, what I'm going to do, if I may, I'm
Yeah.
going to begin with the end at the beginning, because, and I may surprise you with what I'm going to say, which is, I don't care about productivity. I
Mm,
couldn't give a monkeys about procrastination. I'm not interested in either of those things. What I'm interested in is living a life of purpose and meaning and achieving the things that I think are important to me in my lifetime. In my book, I call it your personal life vision.
mm,
And in the book, I encourage you to be very clear about what that is. Of course, it's fluid, it can change, but be very clear about what it is at any moment in time. And then how do you live it? How do you achieve it? And I realized that as I was starting to promote my book on procrastination and productivity, because it's definitely there, it's in the titles, it's really about what is that passion project that is still sat there waiting to be finished? What is that thing that you know you want to get done, that you have to get done, but there's nothing really making you get on and do it? And it's just sat there waiting. And so, what I'm really about is it's procrastination that prevents you from living the life of your dreams. And it's
mm.
productivity that gets you there. But those are just the vehicles. But what I'm focused on the whole time that I'm doing this and that I work with clients, and what your listeners and viewers are focused on too, is the destination. Where are we going?
Mm.
And so I offer what I'm offering is use this technology to get to where you're going, but don't get caught up in the idea that I'm all about procrastination and productivity. I'm not. I'm all about what does it help me achieve? Does that make sense?
Got beyond makes sense. That one liner was so good. Procrastination is what stops you from living the life of your dreams, and productivity is what gets you there. And I want to highlight what you said is that you're not interested in procrastination and productivity. Those are just vehicles for the deeper purpose, which is what every one of us is, truly desiring. So I have two questions on this one, but I'm going to start with the first one because we said procrastination. So I love the way that you're like, I'm not interested in procrastination, but you also studied procrastination a lot, right? Like 900 plus research studies and books. And so I'm curious, is that what led to your discovery of like, it's not about that? Or like, what did you learn about procrastination when you researched all of this?
So yeah, I can answer that simply by telling you in a shortened version of my story. Well, the long version's not; it's only about 2 lines longer, actually. So my journey began really in 2001. I made a major life change in that I quit the family retail business and I retrained as a life coach. And I trained as a life coach with Tony Robbins in American Tony Robbins in California in 2001, as I say. And that was with a view to actually getting a job working for him as one of his coaches. And as luck would have it, his plans changed and my plans changed. And actually, one of the things about my plans that didn't change was I'm British and his operation is in San Diego. And at that time, it didn't suit him to have coaches working remotely. He wanted people working out of the office in San Diego. And anyway, as I say, his plans changed, my plans changed. I came home to England having trained with him. And I set up my own life coaching business here in the UK. I wanted to be with I didn't want to be, I was with my family. And that was part of the reason why I couldn't just up sticks and move to the States, even if that was offered. And so I did that for a few years. And then as luck would have it, I became a full-time single parent. And then I decided to park the coaching and focus on being a full-time dad. I wanted to go to all the school plays and the sports days and be fully engaged in
the dad in me loves the dad in you, brother. Like I was at a play yesterday at my son's school.
Yes, and I thought it at the time, and it turns out it's true. It all goes too fast,
it does.
and if you miss it, you miss it. So I didn't, and I'm really pleased that I didn't. I saw it all, and I witnessed it all, and I was participant in it all. But it did mean that I didn't. I did other things, but I didn't do the coaching. 2019, you've mentioned. I'm sat in a coffee shop talking to my older brother, and I'm bragging about the fact that I got my degree. And my brother is like, oh, is that the time? Oh, I must go. I've only been here 5 minutes and I'm already bored. That's older brothers for you. For me, it was a big deal. I never got a chance to finish my education because of that retail business, which was a family business. I had to go into the business when I was a teenager, never finished my university, never got a chance to go to university. So for me, it was a big deal. And I was really pleased with myself. And I'm like, oh, he's not very impressed though, is he? Oh, well. And then I thought, oh, I know. I said to him, trust me to take 10 years to do something I should have done in 6. And he went, yeah, why was that? I thought, oh, yeah, caffeine's kicking in now, isn't it? Yeah, lovely. So I said to him, procrastination. And I laughed and he laughed and I changed the subject and we talked about something else. And then when I was driving home, I thought, wait a minute. I started having a conversation with someone I know really well and is the only person that I really trust and makes sense. And that was, of course, an internal dialogue with myself. And I said, hang on a minute. You're a trained life coach. How dare you procrastinate? How very dare you? That's outrageous. Your clients never procrastinated. And I thought, no, they didn't, did they? Well, that's because I didn't let them. And I didn't quite connect the dots there, but I didn't. They must have done, but I didn't let them, right? So there was a little clue there. But I thought, okay, all right. So, all right. Yeah, all right. So then I asked myself 2 quality questions, which any good coach will ask you, which is, where else in your life does this show up? And I thought, absolutely everywhere. And then I thought, okay, so what does it cost me? And by the time I got home, it was only a 20-minute drive, but by the time I got home, I realized it had cost me in relationships, finances, career, health. I was 60 pounds heavier. There's a reason for that, and it's procrastination. And every conceivable area in my life had been dramatically impacted by chronic procrastination, not just mild procrastination. Shall I do the dishes? Who cares? But actual day-to-day procrastination on not doing the things that really mattered and were important to me. And I got home. By the time I got home, I was really angry and incredibly upset. I was almost, I had a lot of trouble calming myself down because I was so upset. And I rang my brother, who at the time was a mental health professional, and I had over 100 days of training with Tony under my belt as well. And come on, between us, surely, what's the cure for procrastination? It's on the tip of my tongue. I know what it is. I'm sure I know what it is. And he goes, well, yeah, it's on the tip of my tongue too. And then there was just like tumbleweed silence. And then he said, you know what? I don't think I do know what it is. And I'm like, oh, you mean I can't just pop to the chemist and just buy something? I could pop a tablet and it will go away. And so then we had the gift that kept on giving. And I mean that in an ironic sense, which is COVID and all the lockdowns. And that's when I decided, okay, I'll research it. And I'll use my skills. I've just got my degree. Did I mention I just got my degree? And I'll use my skills from my degree to look at the science behind it. And what I discovered very fast was that it was one of the most researched areas of psychology in the world. And there's a reason for this, because most research carries on at university. And who is it that we find at university in vast numbers? Students. And what do students do in vast numbers? Procrastinate. So, of course, there's a lot of studies done into it. In one 10-year period in the 2000s, there was 900 research papers done into it. That's just one 10-year period. And I thought, okay, I don't need to research this. In any case, I'm not a scientist. I mean, just to give you an example, just to be clear about that, George, when I was at school, my last science exam was biology, and they gave me 9%. And that's because I spelt my name right. And that is not a joke.
You
That is
sound like you
actually,
got a higher score than me though, because I didn't even go to
yes.
college. So,
Yeah, well, that was at school. That was just, before I was 16. I think I was 14 when I got that. It was the last
mm,
time I did science. It goes in this ear and out the other end, and nothing doesn't touch anything in between. But in the moments that I could grasp it, in the moments of, oh, I understand what you're saying, 30 seconds later, it's gone. But in the 30
mm,
seconds I've got it, my skill is, because I'm an arts and humanities guy, that's what my degree's in, I can turn it into English. Probably. There's a lot of science. I'm not talking mind-blowing science here. I'm not talking about explanations for life, the universe, and everything. But there are some things I can turn into English. And that's what I did. And I started writing it down in my book. Well, it wasn't a book to begin with. It was just notes. And I thought, hang on, there's so many notes here. There's a book here. And so I started writing it down. Now, I want to go back to what I said just now, which was about, well, why does any of that matter? Well, because of what it cost.
mm,
Because of when I looked at the chronic, see, I used to think about, in answer to my own question to myself about how dare I procrastinate, I used to think, well, I never owned up to it. I used to think about procrastination in the way that most people used to think about the common cold before COVID, and then a little sniffle is actually, that could become quite serious. We all get a bit
mhm,
worried now. But in the old days, 2019 and before, we used to say, oh, I've got a cold. Oh, don't worry about it. I'll get through it. I'll spread it around the whole office, but you'll all be fine. No worries. We can all work through it. Not a problem. Right? Just work through it. Oh, procrastination. Oh, I'm procrastinating today. Never mind. I'll do it tomorrow. That's the procrastinator's mantra, of course. I'll do it tomorrow. But at that moment in 2019, tomorrow turns out, was 20 years. Not the next day, not the next week, not the next month, but 20 years had gone past in which I had largely procrastinated my dreams,
mm.
my passion projects, the things that really mattered to me. I've done lots of other things. I've been incredibly productive. You should see how tidy my garage was, and you should see all the other bits and pieces that I did with my life. But in terms of living my dreams, I've known for most of my adult life, my dream is to make a difference in the world, to be a
Mm.
meaningful person, not just in the lives of my children, because we're only caretakers for our kids. There comes a point at which they let you know they don't need you anymore. They want you
Yep.
around, maybe
Yep.
not literally on the doorstep, but they don't need you anymore. You've done your job. But then, if I help you achieve your passion project, there comes a point where you don't need me anymore either.
Mhm.
And so what I came up with was I started looking at the science, and I thought, okay, how can I turn this into plain English so that people like me, I nearly said idiots like me, but what I really mean is I'm an idiot and I needed to understand it. And if I can understand it, then hopefully I can communicate it to you, however intelligent and sophisticated you are. But you need to be able to understand it, and you need to be able to understand it easily.
Mm.
And that's what I did. I took the science and I started translating it. And then, but always coming back to that outcome, that objective, which is, how can we achieve your personal life vision? And by personal life vision, I mean, be true to yourself, your core identity, be true to your life purpose, and be proud. I mean, I always sign off GoalBusters. At the end of GoalBusters, I always say, and remember, everybody, keep goal busting and make your future self proud. Ironically, I'm not really interested in goals, because I discovered the science said that goals actually set up an obligation which causes you to procrastinate.
Mhm.
But we do need micro goals, little micro deadlines, things that we do on a daily, weekly basis that we achieve in order to achieve our outcome. So I went with it anyway.
Oh my God. So for anybody listening, I'm gonna summarize this maybe like 45 seconds, because this was pure gold, but I want you to re-listen if any of that landed for you, because when we think about the two P's, procrastination and productivity, one is working for you and one is working against you, but both of them have influence on what you, Robin, call your personal life vision, which for me is the thing that is aligned for us to do. And I chuckled, by the way, when you're like, you should see how tidy my garage is. And I was like, you know what I did this weekend? I avoided my laptop because I didn't want to dive in and do the thing I had to do. So I cleaned my garage. I power washed it, and then God made it muddy again. And I'm like, okay, I heard God, I'll focus my time better. I feel really called out, but in a good way. And so underneath all of this is your personal life vision. And it's you really having the time, the space, and the curiosity to discover, like, what is that thing that brings you joy? I love how you said yours is like, it's making a positive influence in people. That's what mine is as well. Um, and so for all of us, I think step number one is like, you said this very early on in the show, is like having your personal life vision, but it's not rigid, it's fluid. But it's making sure that we plug into it and we ask ourselves, like, what is it? Are these things that I'm doing aligned with what it is? And you're like, well, I don't know what that thing is. Well, that's the first place to start. Like, what is that thing? It becomes your North Star. And so I love the way that you break down all the commonalities of like, well, what's my goal, or why am I procrastinating? And you're like, there's a deeper level to this. It's like, what are you avoiding, or what are you preventing yourself from achieving? And the old recovering personal development coach in me, people hate when I ask those questions. Where else does it show up in your life, and what is it costing you? And then the ones that I ask before that are, what are you pretending not to know? And what are you pretending not to see? And so for everybody listening, if you want 4 questions to get to the bottom of all of this, it's like, no, I'm so great. And I'm like, what are you pretending not to know? Right? Or I don't know why I delay. And I'm like, what are you pretending not to know? What are you pretending not to see? Where else does this show up in your life? And then what is it costing you? And I've learned for me that I'm really good at blinding myself to the consequence of the cost so that I don't have to change the behavior. So it's a really sneaky procrastination method. So I wanted to summarize that for everybody listening, because I love the way that you broke that down. Now I'm curious, because you mentioned this earlier, when you were telling the story about how this all hit you, and it was like you were like referencing the inside of yourself as like your team. I think you call it like your inner productivity team. Can you break that down for us? Like, what the heck is my inner productivity team? Is like that movie Inside Out, and I have all my emotions inside of me and they're all doing their job. Like, what is that?
Yeah, it's exactly like that. And thank you for bringing that up, because that's really the crown jewels of what procrastination and productivity is all about. Let me just take one little short step back from that and remind people what procrastination is, because when I was looking for the answer to what the heck is procrastination, what's the cure for it? The answer is we're hardwired to procrastinate. It's an inside job. The inside out.
100%
It's an inside job. We're hardwired. The simplest explanation is probably the oldest explanation, which, do you know what? Lots of people listening and watching this have probably heard this 1,000 times. Never occurred to me before until I started reading up on it, because I hadn't read up on it. But it's just, if you think about it, the body that we inhabit now in evolutionary terms is the same body that has been around for thousands of years, tens of thousands of years. It hasn't changed that much at all. Go back 10,000 years, and most of us were living in caves, or the equivalent of. And you're in a cave, and you're there with your loved ones, your family, and there's a man-eating bear at the entrance to the cave. And if you stay in the cave, you know that you're all going to starve. But if you leave the cave, you have to fight that bear for your life. And the bear will either have you for lunch, or you will kill it, or you could be maimed for life. And those are the choices that you've got. So what do? You procrastinate. You're like, what do I do? You freeze, or you decide to fight, or you decide to flee. And you can't flee, you're trapped in the cave, right? But the procrastination is an incredibly rational behavior, because your brain is hardwired for 2 things. Number 1, your survival. And you're there thinking, it's the bear or me, and I'm not sure who's going to win, right? And number 2, are there in the cave with you, the result of procreation, survival of the species. Everything else is just how you choose to live your life. But your brain is hardwired from the moment you are born to the moment you die for your survival and procreation of the species. So when you understand that, then you understand that this is what the science, when I started looking at the science, and my brain started fogging over as I was reading it, but I'll do my best to explain it in plain British English, it may not be plain American English, I apologize for that. But in plain British English, you have at the core of your brain, at the center of your brain, is the limbic system. And the limbic system is the oldest part of your brain, and it is where all your instinctive behavior lives, and it is where all of these survival instincts come from. And it is incredibly powerful. We were talking earlier about not eating and not drinking, or not eating for Lent. What you are doing is you are, in terms of your biology, and I'm not talking about anything in the philosophical realm or the religious realm, but in terms of biology, you are up against your physical system, which is designed to help make you survive. So you're fighting something very, very strong. It's very not so strong you can't overcome it, but it's instinctive. You don't have to think about it. If someone shouts, "Lion!" and you look around and there's a man-eating lion running at you, you don't stop and they shout, "Quick, run for the door." You don't go, which door do you think I should run for? You'd be dead, right?
Yep.
You just run.
Yep.
Now, I sometimes think about which I need to put my trainers on, because I can't outrun a lion, but I can outrun the person that hasn't got their trainers on, but that's a different story, right? So the important thing is that is very, very powerful. But up here, underneath my hat, at the front of your head, you have the prefrontal cortex. Now, the prefrontal cortex, in evolutionary terms, is younger than the limbic system, and it's where we do all of our rational thinking. And by the way, if you're a student, what's really frustrating, if you're a student under 25, it's not fully formed yet. It's still developing. No wonder you procrastinate. You've got an absolute perfect storm problem. You've left home. You're living by yourself, so you've got all that freedom that you've been nagging your parents, that you're demanding that you get from your parents for years now. You've got it. You've got some money, probably not enough, but you've got some money. You can live your life as you want to live it. And you procrastinate because that's your natural behavior. That's because you haven't yet got rid of this. The prefrontal cortex is not fully formed. So you are going to be irresponsible and not think rationally, because you find that tougher than just, I feel like just going out and having a beer. And there's less rational ability. That adults will just look at you with scorn and say, doesn't he understand about deferred gratification? No, he doesn't, because he's under 25, right? So there's that going on. So when I looked at the science and I realized that you've got these competing things going on, you've got the prefrontal cortex, where all of the rational thinking goes on, where you connect with your life purpose, where you think about your identity, and all of that goes on. And then you've got your limbic system, which is like, run, eat, procreate, just do it on demand, all of those things. And it's stronger. The problem is this: when the limbic system is agitated by an external factor, like a man-eating bear or a lion coming at you, you go into what's called threat modality, your survival instincts. And when you're in threat modality, nothing else can happen. The prefrontal cortex shuts down. You don't need it. You've just got to survive. But here's the thing. In most parts of the world that we live in today, you don't have man-eating bears and lions going after you. But you have the equivalent. You have unexpected bills you can't pay. You have bailiffs at the door demanding rent you can't pay. You have sickness that you can't deal with, either your own or that of your loved ones. I mean, as a parent, you'll know there is nothing more debilitating in terms of your mental state than a sick child. Your mind immediately goes to the worst possible case scenarios. You don't want to do anything else other than deal with that and hope to goodness that it comes out right. And all of these things put you in threat modality, and the prefrontal cortex shuts down. In order to get yourself into the groove of productivity, now by productivity, what I'm talking about is not tidying the garage, not unless that's your business. If you make your living out of tidying people's garages, you can disregard what follows. But if it's just a distraction and a metaphor for not doing that thing that you really need to do, that you really want to get done, building that course, building that for that will really help your clients, building that audio system, that whatever it is, writing books, whatever it is, the art that you want to do, whatever that is, in order getting into the groove, it's like the Madonna record, Get Into the Groove from the 1980s. I have that running through my mind. I can't sing it out loud because it's copyright, but that goes through my mind. You need to get into the groove. And it's like the old vinyl records where the needle goes into the groove and it's a spiral groove that goes on all the way to the center. And I call that the groove of productivity. And to get in there, you need three things. And by the way, you can be easily knocked out of them. The threat modality can be agitated in an instant. Opening an email that has bad news, opening a letter that has bad news, your son or daughter coming in and saying, I'm ill. And you go, oh my God, nothing else. And all of that chucks you straight into threat modality. So in order to get into the groove and stay there, you need three things to be present. And I'm going to blind you with science now, and it'll be the only time I do it. You need dopamine, you need acetylcholine, and you need noradrenaline. And there'll be a short quiz after to make sure you've remembered those. No, seriously. You need the three neurotransmitters fully present in your brain to be fully productive. It's basically about getting into your peak state, being in peak performance, your absolute ability to be completely in the groove and working on the things that you're most productive at. And I looked at these when I read about these. I thought, I mean, dopamine is quite a famous neurotransmitter. They're all neurotransmitters. Dopamine is the rock star. Everybody's heard of dopamine. If you've got one of these, then you'll know that this is the dopamine in your pocket. It provides instant hits just by you scrolling through to your favorite game, your favorite website, whatever, messaging people, dopamine hits. To get into that groove, I decided to give these three neurotransmitters an identity that helps me remember what they do, not what they're called. So dopamine I call the conductor, and the conductor resides up here in the prefrontal cortex. And the conductor is like the conductor of an orchestra. And if you're ever a conductor of an orchestra, they give out all the music to all the different instruments. And because before the conductor comes in, there's an absolute cacophony of the most awful sound coming from all the different instruments. But the conductor comes in and he gives them a beat and he directs them and he brings them all together to make the most fantastic sounding music, which is the music of your life. And that's their job. Then you need, and that's what they do. That's why they're there. And then, by the way, they only appear, the antithesis of threat modality, which is when your limbic system is in charge and it's all instinctive, is the reward modality. And the conductor is in charge. Captain of the ship is another name for them. That works too. I called them the conductor because I like the music of your life. The next one you need is the scholar. Now, the scholar is an interesting one. That's acetylcholine. The scholar, if you think about it, I don't know if you know any children, but you probably were one once. I think I was. It was a long time ago. It's a very vague memory. But when I was a child, I had this incredible facility to be able to focus really hard and for a really long time. Before I can remember, actually. How do I know this? Because before I can remember, I learned to not only understand what people were saying around me, language, I also learned to speak it. As an adult, there isn't any sum of money you could pay me that would help me to motivate me to learn another language. I've tried. I can't do it. And yet I did when I was a child. And that was because acetylcholine was present and it gave me the ability to focus. Now I know kids are easily distracted. I've got gas! Ah! Right? Or as I call it from the Pixar Up movies, squirrel!
Yep.
Right? Kids do that all the time. But when they are centered and in the groove, they can stay there for hours and hours and hours. You can put a movie on and just put it on auto replay. They'll watch it all day, days at a time. I know all of my kids. They've all got I know a movie that goes with each child that they watched again and again and again. How do I know? Because I had to watch it as well. It was always on. Right? And I'm thinking one of them was it doesn't matter. Cars.
Yep.
Right. That was one of my children's. Like, oh yeah, I've seen that so many times. Right. So, but that's there. Now, here's the kicker. When you're an adult, acetylcholine is not naturally present in your brain. You have to manufacture it, which you can do. But the way that you manufacture it is you have to create the conditions to be more focused. Now, the best way I can describe it is how do you know when you've been when you are fully focused and you are being the scholar? And the answer is pretty simple. If If you say, right, I'm going to sit down, I'm going to do some work for just 5 minutes. And if when you look at your watch, I have a watch, but people use these things. Have we mentioned that already? But when you have look at the time, if after 5 minutes you look at the time and an hour's gone by and you didn't realize, you were being a scholar, you were in the groove. If 5 hours have gone past, you were being a scholar, you were in the groove, right? That's how you know you've done it. You just have to think about, well, how do I create that environment so that I can be in an undistracted, non-distracted, focused state? I can be a scholar. And then that's when you're naturally producing it. And the final one, noradrenaline, I call this the fun-sized warrior. It's like like you get fun-sized chocolate bars in your lunchbox when you're a child. They're not so fun these days because chocolate's so expensive, but I still like fun-sized chocolate bars. So the fun-sized warrior, not the big warrior. The big warrior is the limbic system. It's when you need to fight, flee, or freeze. It's when you need them to come out of the barracks and defend you, keep you alive, help you survive. The problem is they don't think. They take orders, but they don't think. They're pretty dumb, actually, but they'll save your life. If you're a soldier, you need them all the time. But if you don't happen to be a soldier on active duty somewhere in a war zone, then you don't need them. But they'll come out. Oh, my goodness, I've just heard terrible news about the health of my partner. Of course the warrior's going to come out. I'm going to fight for your life. I'm going to fight for my own life. You need that. But most of the time you don't. But the fun-size warrior is different. The fun-size warrior says to the big warrior, you stay in barracks. I've got this. And what the fun-size warrior is, it just makes you feel just a little bit anxious, a little bit tense. Like right now, when I'm talking to you, I'm not sat back on my chair. If I did, I would lose my train of thought instantly. I'm sat on the edge of my chair and I'm feeling a little bit agitated, which keeps me in the groove. It keeps me focused. The fun-sized warrior, he's there. You can't see him right now. There's a little guy on my shoulder wearing another silly hat and wearing my owl-like glasses. He looks like a hoot as well, but he's carrying a sword and spear and a shield because he is there reminding me constantly, you've got to be just a little bit on edge. You've just got to have that little bit of anxiety, that little bit of stress that you've got to get this done. And that is your inner productivity team. And when all three are present, you won't be in the garage tidying the garage. Or if you are, then you need to remember that there are two kinds of productivity. And I'll end this little bit on that. The productivity of being in the garage, at the end of the day, you'll feel great. You'll have a great big smug grin on your face and go, yay, I tidied the garage. I feel really proud of that. And then you'll remember, okay, yeah, but my ultimate life vision, my personal life vision is to be an oncologist. How did the tidying the garage get me any close? Oh, wait, it didn't, did it? Oh, damn. I missed my goal somehow. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I distracted myself. Oops. So you need to understand that productivity only counts when you're working on the thing that really matters to you. Tidying the garage, it may need doing, but did it need doing then? If it did, great. But otherwise, you've distracted yourself and you've been in the groove of non-productivity.
I love this. I love the Conductor. The fun size warrior is like my new favorite thing. You're going to be getting credit drops like at least 3-4 times a day because now I'm like thinking about my fun size warrior because I have that guy in the barracks who, like, even last night on a phone call, my partner was like, hey, I don't need Marine Afghanistan George right now. And I was like, something came out of so left field that I didn't expect, that by the time I realized that I was like stern, direct, like sitting up, like almost back in combat. And she's like, whoa, I just need to vent. And I'm like, oh, and she's like, put him away. And so I love the fun size warrior. That is my favorite thing. And I love the way that you broke this down. I have an easy question, like 1 minute answer. And probably
I don't do 1 minute answers. That's not easy.
This one might be more of an observation just to get your thoughts on, because what I realize is when you're talking about these three, and for everybody listening to this, I want you to really write down this inner productivity team. Okay. So number 1 is the Conductor. Number 2 is the Scholar. Number 3 is the fun size warrior. You said something very profound in the Scholar that worked for me, right? Which is environmental design or a container, right? I realize, and this might be too divulgent for people listening, but like I grew up in such chaos, like homelessness and messy houses, like hoarders and all this thing, that then when I went in the military, everything was spick span spotless, right? And I realized that most of my life would be in either one of those states. There was no medium. But for me, like cleaning the garage, when I know the garage is clean and I know where everything is, I can go focus for like 10 straight hours on something upstairs. Even though I can't see it, I'm thinking about it because I'm like, oh, when my son comes home, am I going to know where this is? Or am I going to know where this is? And so I realized like some of that productivity that you mentioned, my environmental design is probably one of like the most important things for me. Like even on this desk, like I have my big monitor set up, but I have an empty notepad every single time. So when I get a fleeting note, I'm like, I always have somewhere to put it. And then I always know where it is. And so um, I love the way that you broke that down, because those three things being present, I wrote down notes on my side, which is the scholar is I need to create that container or environment to focus. The second one being the fun size warriors, I was like, I need to create some intentional pressure, like just a slight bit of discomfort, right? And as you were speaking, I do the same thing. When I'm interviewing somebody on the podcast like you, I sit back. When I'm getting interviewed, I'm like this at the monitor because I'm like, oh, I just want to sit back and put my feet up. And I'm like, no, 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 I'm like this. And then I get sweaty and I have to change my t-shirt after every podcast. So then the question on the conductor, which is that dopamine piece, what's the like reminder to like implement that? Like how, if somebody has the scholar and the fun size warrior, do they create dopamine?
Okay, so the critical thing you need to understand is when you're procrastinating, it's not you that's lacking. There are some things that are just missing. You need more structure in your day. That's hugely important. You need to have a very clear understanding of what is the next step that you need to take. In the book, if you haven't got to it yet, it's probably not because it's in the final third of the book. It's in the momentum section. I talk about island hopping, jumping from one island to the next, to the next, to the next. And I explain that it's a metaphor from the Polynesians of taking over maybe 1,000 islands over centuries in the Pacific Ocean. How did they do it? One at a time is how they did it. I don't know the exact mechanics of it, but they did it one at a time. So if your project is 1,000 steps, you can't get your head around how do I do 1,000 steps, but you can get your head around how can I get to the next one. So having a clear idea of your next step and no feedback loop. The fun size warrior, what I do is I provide external accountability for people. I'm their fun size warrior. I get to be the fun, because you're stressing about, if I don't get this done by the end of the week, I'm going to reporting back to Robin that I didn't get it done. Oops. Now we're herd animals. We're not, despite anybody, don't believe anybody that tells you I'm an individualist, I don't need anybody. And then ask them, well, where do you get your electricity from? Are you sat on a bike generating it yourself, or do you buy it? Do you pay someone to provide it for you? You're a team member because you paid someone to provide that service. How do you get your trash taken away? Do you take it to the tip yourself, or do you pay someone to take it away? We are herd animals, and socially we're herd animals. AI is not going to take over everything. AI can't empathize. If I thought that being an accountability, I could get accountability from AI, I'd be using it already, but I don't care about AI because it doesn't care about me, because it is an it. It's not a thing. It's not real, right? But if George is my accountability buddy or my accountability coach, and I know that at the end of the week, I'm going to be telling him, I didn't get it done, George is going to rake me over the coals over it, and I'm going to be embarrassed. And I don't want that.
Yeah.
So it's about environment is the answer to your question. So now, I understand, with your background in the military, that having a tidy garage creates a better environment for you. Here's the kicker. How many people out there can say, okay, so I decided I'm going to sit down and I'm going to work on this project solid for the next month. And they spend I mentioned this in my book. When I started to study for my university degree, I had my first 3 months laid out for me by the university. Here are your textbooks. Here are the videos you got to watch. Here are the audios you got to listen to. Here's the projects you've got to complete over the next 3 months, because it was work from home. So they sent me blocks at a time. And I spent probably the first 3 weeks out of 4 that I had to get my first assignment in, working out what printer to buy, working out how to get the cheapest ink, tidying my desk. And in my mind, it was all, I need to create a supportive environment. I really need to make sure I was procrastinating.
Mm-hmm.
Boy, was I procrastinating. I was very productive. I have a lovely printer. I get the best quality cheap ink. And my desk was incredibly tidy. But my assignment at the end of that month really sucked, because I'd only left myself a week to do something I should have done for over 4 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to be the conductor needs to help you identify the difference between productivity on your life vision and productivity that is basically procrastination. And in the book, I have a productivity meter, a gauge that helps you, make sure you identify what am I doing today. Now, I'm not decrying tidying the garage. I understand that can have a tremendous, it can lift your morale if your environment feels more supportive. But honestly, you can be productive in the messiest of environments. That doesn't matter. What matters is are you actually doing the work, or are you just moving the deck chairs around on the Titanic?
100%. I was like waiting where you go with that, because it's interesting because of my background of like going from none to going to overstructured. I have to figure out little tricks to like trick myself in, right? So like I know if I walk out into my house and I see dirty dishes or a dishwasher full or the cabinet's a mess, then I know that as I sit there, I can justify my procrastination. It's like, oh, I can't do that till I clean the dishes. I can't do that till I put the laundry away. The moment I walk out there and it's completely spotless, I have nowhere to hide. And it doesn't live spotless all the time. It gets a little messy on the weekends. My son's with me like, 60, 70% of the time. But then like I'd even happened this morning. Like yesterday, my first call was at like 7 a.m. Today, my first call was at like 9:30. I walked out at like 7 and I was like, oh, and then I was like, oh my God, I have nothing to do. I need to go get productive. Like I need to do this and this and this, because there was nothing to distract me in the house. And so it's just a little interesting thing that I've noticed about myself of like just really setting that environment up for my success. And I've been, go ahead.
Well, I mean, you're a bit of an amateur, really, aren't you? Because what I would do in that situation, when I've got the garage is tidy, the kitchen is tidy, the dishes are washed, I'll log onto the computer and I go, when was the last time I tidied up my email folder? That'll take me a couple of days. When was the last time I rebuilt my web page? Doesn't need redoing, but I've had a few ideas. That'll take me a couple of days. When was the last time I actually spoke to someone person to person with a view to potentially getting a sale from it? Oh, no, that's hard. No, I'm not going to do that. No, I'll just rebuild the web page. I was actually having that argument with myself just before I came on this call. Us chronic procrastinators, the skill never goes away.
It never goes away. I did it to myself the other day because I looked at my desktop, but then I made Claude Cowork organize my desktop, and it did in 3 minutes what would have taken me, and it named the folders better. And I was like, okay, so I'm going to use this non-emotionless tool to hold myself accountable to go be productive on something that actually matters. And I was like, that event location isn't going to book itself. My client isn't going to respond to themselves either. And I'm like, okay, got it. So I love that. So I love this whole conversation. So first off, if you are listening to this, you need to get a copy of the book. It's really, really easy. If I remember, the website is GetResultsology.com, right?
There's an easier way. I'll give the book away as a PDF.
Oh, even really better.
Reallyusefultips.com, when you'll find it. Really, as in, I really mean it. I give it away, but I am going to change my mind at some point to get it. Well, before I change my mind. Useful as in, I hope the book you find incredibly useful, and it's full of tips. Reallyusefultips.com. You can pick up the book for free. There's also, for people that don't have time to read the book because they procrastinate about reading books. Maybe that's a thing. Do you think? I got a shelf full of those. I even refer to it in the book as the Japanese word for it is sunduku, which means acquiring reading materials and piling them up for later. And if that's you, then I got another thing that may help you, which is a 10 minutes a day for 5 days, a productivity challenge. And that's called skyrocketyourproductivitychallenge.com. skyrocketyourproductivitychallenge.com, and that's free as well. And you can get that, and it's a shortcut to get you some of the technology that's in the book even more quickly into your very busy and distracted mind.
I love that. I love that. Thank you. You couldn't have answered any better. So now I want to ask you a question. So everyone's listening to this, right? They're like, "Oh my God, that makes so much sense. Like I need the inner dream team, right? I need my conductor, I need my scholar, I need my fun size warrior, right? Like, oh my God, I'm totally procrastinating. I've convinced, like so many things landed for me. And I'm like, so then there's an entrepreneur listening to this. What do they do today? Like, what's the thing that everybody should do today or tomorrow and practice consistently to apply this to their life?
Okay, so I'm going to do my usual trick of before I answer that, I'm going to take you down a little tangent first and say to you,
Let's do it.
I want to talk to you about M cubed. Now, M cubed is not something I mentioned in the book, but it's actually what the book is about. The book is split into 3 sections. It's about understanding what procrastination is. It's about the strategies that you can use to overcome it. And it's about momentum. And momentum is one of the M's. Strategy is motivation. The other M is not mentioned. Just let me rewind a little bit. You need to understand why you procrastinate. For everybody that's out there going, oh, just tell me what the tablet is that I take. No, it doesn't work. If you get to the end of the year and there's not enough money in your bank account, you can always figure out a way that may bring in more money, because there's an infinite supply of money. Money is not real, but what you do with it is real. You can always make more. But if you get to the end of the year, or 10 years, or 20 years in my case, and you realize you've wasted a lot of that time, it's gone. It's spent. You cannot get back time that you've wasted. So the time to catch procrastination is not what I did, which is like 20 years later. Oh my goodness, I've wasted 20 years of my life procrastinating things away that were important to me. The time to catch it is when you're doing it. Oh, I'm tidying the garage right now. Wait a minute. I don't need to be in here. I need to stop doing this now. So that's why I have a big section on understanding it. And by the way, one of the things that we haven't mentioned, but I will mention it today, right now, which is when you are procrastinating, the behavior that you are indulging in that moment fulfills more of your human needs than your perception of the behavior that you need to do in order to be more productive. You feel more threatened, more anxious, more upset about the things that you really should be doing. But when you are indulging in the procrastinating behavior, comfort eating, watching TV sets, going for a walk, exercise, I mean, these are all great things, by the way, but when you're doing them instead of working productively, it's because they are meeting your needs. And the key to it is you have to figure out how to get your needs met by doing the things that really matter to you, which may feel uncomfortable. So the M cubed strategy is about motivation. I got a cupboard full of motivational books behind me, and motivational planners and schedulers and journals. They're in the cupboard for a reason, because they migrated there. They only motivated me for a while. So all the strategies work for a while, but then you need to keep going with them. And that's where the momentum comes in, which is where I talk about island hopping. And I also talk, which is something you can do for yourself. And I also talk about external accountability. Internal accountability works for some people, and they're going to be going, oh, I don't need this. That's fine. Great. There are people like that. Not many, but I know a few. So I do know they exist. Doesn't work for me. And I can tell you at another time, I can tell you why it doesn't work for me. And it doesn't work for a lot of other people. But external accountability, that boss, having somebody to report to, even though they may not be your legal boss, which is what you would have in the traditional workplace, but having somebody that holds you accountable, that's what helps with that. That's momentum. And that's where the extra, you mentioned it right at the start, that's where the extra 33% comes from. That's scientifically proven, 33%. It's in the book. The third M, the thing I haven't said, mastery. That's mastery of yourself. So that you know that when you're in the garage procrastinating, tidying the garage, and you think, hang on a minute, right now I'm procrastinating. You've mastered yourself in that moment. You've caught it. Now what are you going to do? What motivational strategy are you going to employ to get yourself out of the garage and onto something that you need to do? That's mastery, because you're starting to think in that way. So what was the question? I kind of put such a tangent.
I love it. I said, well, it's kind of perfect. You framed it. I said, so for everybody listening, now they resonate with this. What do they do today?
Yeah. Just do something. Just do something. Now, what do I mean by do something? I mean do something in the productive field, even if it's just for 5 minutes. So, for example, by the way, when you understand, the other thing in the book that I talk about, and we've talked about it a few times today, is having a strong sense of your personal life vision. So let's imagine that your personal life vision is probably not anything that any of your listeners or viewers are on, but let's imagine, I mentioned it in the book, you want to be an oncologist, which is the last thing on earth that I would want to be, but it's a big profession. I believe it takes about 15 years. I haven't really studied it because it's not my thing, but I know it takes 7 or 8 years to become a qualified doctor. And then you need to do that same amount of time again before you can specialize and say you're an oncologist, you're a gynecologist, you're whatever, all of those oncologists, right? 15 years. Okay. So you're procrastinating about doing the dishes. In my old model of the world, it didn't matter. I don't care about the dishes. I'll do them tomorrow. I'll buy paper plates. I'll throw away my dirty dishes, right? Whatever. But you're procrastinating about doing the dishes. Why does that have anything to do with your personal life vision? Well, perhaps the dirty dishes are on the kitchen table, the island, which is where you lay out your study materials. And you're not going to lay out your study materials today because there's dirty dishes and you don't want to do the dishes. Wait, but I want to be an oncologist. 15 years from now, I won't be an oncologist if I don't clean the dishes today so that I study tonight. So when you start making those little connections, you get those little course corrections. It's like, okay, so now I understand why I need to do the dishes. By the way, if doing the dishes makes no difference to your personal life vision, don't do the dishes. You'll clean them when you need them. It doesn't matter. It's no big deal. But if it's literally, that's where you would go. Do you see how that little tiny thing could be actually connected to something really important? That's the one thing. But in terms of what to do today, I talk in the book about the Pomodoros, which was a technique created by a student, an Italian student, thus the Pomodoro Italian sounding name, of a 25-minute block of focused activity with a 5-minute break. Anybody can do that. 25 minutes of focused activity? Oh my goodness. Who can't do that for just 25 minutes? So for just 25 minutes, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to do the thing that I've been putting off for a day, a week, a month, a year. I'm just going to do it for 25 minutes. And then have a little break. And then what are you going to do? Oh, actually, I think I could do another 25 minutes. Or actually, no, I'm going to go out on my, I'm going to go skiing, or I'm going to go and watch TV, or I'm going to play a game. But at least you got 25 minutes done. I call them, they're Pomodoros. I call them POMs. And I set myself the goal of having 12 POMs today. That's 6 hours of work. 12 POMs, 10 POMs, 5 POMs. But 1 POM in the groove with the scholar, the conductor, and the fun-size warrior fully present. That's distraction-free. Doesn't matter that your desk is untidy. Doesn't matter that your computer is untidy. What matters is that for 25 minutes, you just focus. If you're writing a book, how many words could you write in 25 minutes? I don't know. Maybe 1, maybe 200, maybe 500. I don't know. But do it for 25 minutes.
I love that. I love Pomodoro. I use it. And I love the way that you just broke that down of like measuring your day, because you said this earlier, and this isn't a big talking point, but goals lead to procrastination, but micro checkpoints or containers will lead you to productivity. And so
because when they did this, I've always instinctively kicked back against goals. You think as a trained life coach, I'd be like, yeah, what are your goals? Well, we talk about goals. We can't avoid talking about goals, but society is full of very successful people who've never set a goal in their life. Yep. It's not a guarantee that you're going to be successful just because you set goals.
Nope.
When they studied it, the scientists they realized that the goals set up a feeling of obligation, and obligation triggers anxiety. And where does anxiety sit when it's in the warrior mode? In threat modality. That's when the conductor is literally, or she's literally, out to lunch. They are not working with you today. They're on a break because you're in threat modality and you're dealing with survival. And I talk about this more in the book, but threat modality, it sucks because you can get into threat modality. It's instant. Getting out of it can take you minutes, hours,
Mm-hmm.
days, weeks, months, years. Reward modality, which is when the conductor is in charge, you have to create an environment in which the reward modality is easier to get into. Stephen King, the author, talks about how, he doesn't talk about reward modality, but he talks about how he locks himself away in his room every working day for a few hours until he's written X number of words.
Mm-hmm.
Because he needs to be in that distraction-free environment. Victor Hugo, the author of Les Miserables, the book, not the musical, talks about how we know his story is he got paid a lot of money by his publisher to write Les Miserables, didn't do it. He took the money and went and partied with it for an entire year. And at the end of the year, he did not have a book. And I don't know if you know this, but in 19th century France, they had guillotines and they weren't afraid to use them, right? And 18th century France, and they weren't afraid to use them. So he decided that rather than face the guillotine, which he was being metaphorically threatened with by his publisher, he told his servant, right, here are my clothes. I'm now naked. Lock me in my room. Send me food 3 times a day, but do not let me out or give me clothes until I have written my book. And that was his distraction-free environment. Now, we're a bit more civilized than that, but by the way, it worked. He wrote the book. But the point is that is how committed you have to be to getting something done. And don't do what Victor Hugo do. I don't recommend that. But I do recommend that you commit to the next 25 minutes with that kind of passion.
I love that. I love that breakdown. I love the palms. And I'll just share this, before we land the plane, is like sometimes for me, when I'm in that threat mode or something happens, sometimes I have to set a 10-minute palm just to pattern interrupt myself to get into a different state. And then I'm like, I'm going to do another 10 minutes and I'm going to do another 15. And, whatever that measure is for you listening, like picking a number that allows you to get productive and get into that state, but to really be intentional, control it is huge. It's absolutely huge.
And by the way, the book has several strategies, of which Pomodoros are just one. Mm-hmm. They work for some people some of the time. There are other strategies, but you said it beautifully there. Break the pattern that does not serve you. It is a limiting pattern. Find something that does, and understand that whatever you're doing that does not serve you, it is serving you, or you wouldn't be doing it. It is meeting your needs, or you wouldn't be doing it. So the clue is find something else that meets your needs whilst you are being productive on the thing that you really want to be productive on, which is like, okay, I want to be an oncologist. So I'm going to spend 25 minutes writing an essay on a subject I hate. I mean, one of my things I did I had to write an essay about a flawed research paper into Roman pots and pans in medieval Roman pots and pans found in archaeology in the south of France. I cannot think of a topic that is more boring on planet Earth. But I wanted to get my degree. Mm-hmm. So I sucked it up and did it. Yeah, after I'd watched too many box sets and eaten too much food and taken 10 years to do something I should have done in 6. Don't do
and
that.
There's the full loop that closes. Which is a perfect place to land the plane. Brother, I genuinely love you. I love talking to you. I'm so glad that we got connected and I had to come on your show. This was a blast for me, an absolute blast. Like I will do this again because I want to uncover more and have you back. And so couple of things. Number one, if you are listening to this, I am innately curious. I'm going to tell you everywhere to connect with Robin. We're going to have it linked in the show notes, but you also, I'm going to have Robin tell you in a minute, but I want you to hit me up. Shoot me an email. You have my email. I published it on the show. Shoot me an Instagram message. Text me if you have my phone number. But if you could ask Robin anything, what would you ask him? Like, what question are you burning to ask him? What do you want to know next time? Because I have to bring him back because it's entertaining, it's comical, and I feel like I got locked into scholar mode because I don't know how long this was, but I realized I had a notification pop up on my computer like, you have another call in like 7 minutes. And I'm like, oh, I could have done this for hours with you. So like, good job. You fully scratched my itch somehow. So I take that as a compliment. So I want you to get a hold of me and let me know any question you want to ask Robin. So when I bring him back, I have an arsenal of all the things we didn't talk about. And then by the time I finish the book, I'll have more. So Robin, Just really quickly, you gave out some incredible links again. Can you share those again? The 5-day challenge one, the free book one, what were those links?
Yeah, absolutely. There's skyrocketyourproductivitychallenge.com. That'll get you the free video course. There's reallyusefultips.com. That'll get you the free book. Come and find me on GetResultsology.com and email me. You can find me. I'm on LinkedIn under my name, Robin J. Emdon. I'm the only Robin J. Emdon on planet Earth. Come and find me on LinkedIn, send me a message and ask your questions to me as well. Obviously, I'd love to come back and do this again
Yeah,
at some point with George. But in the meantime, if your question is more itching, more urgent, you need an answer now, get in touch with me. And I always answer. Isn't that funny? Some people
it's a
don't, but I do. As long as I see it, I got to see it. If it's gone to my spam folder, please don't be cross.
Yeah, and I will say this: he's on LinkedIn. I am not on LinkedIn, so I'm not connected with him. As you all know, I'm banned for life. But like, hit him up on LinkedIn, ask your questions, and also, like I say on every show, anything that landed, anything that resonated, please tell him. Like, just take 30 seconds and tell Robin,
Please
like,
do,
hey, by
yeah.
the way, when you told this story or when you shared this, it shifted my perspective. You'd be shocked at how podcast hosts or authors end up in an echo chamber, and everybody assumes everybody's telling us, but nobody says a word. And then we're like, hey, did that make sense? Like, did that resonate? So give him the gift of the feedback loop. And at minimum, if you don't have a question, shoot him a message and say, like, this landed, or I loved this, or this changed the distinction, or this takeaway was huge. I know he would love it. And so, Robin, from the bottom of my heart, brother, that was a blast. Thank you so much for coming on the show. I appreciate you immensely.
Yeah, I appreciate you giving me the time. It's been an absolute pleasure and an honor to be here. Thank you so much. It was
I
a
love,
blast. And
I
I will always
literally
remember
love
you
how,
and Room 100.
yeah, I literally love how we could have done 21 of your podcasts in the time that we did this one. And so I'm like, I'm less productive when it comes to the show length, but I love the conversation. So, for everybody listening, I think this is the most important thing. And I say this on every show, like, don't allow this to become shelf help. But whether this helped you understand your relationship with procrastination and productivity better, whether you realize that those were not what we were after and goals are probably making it worse, whether it's, I need to go get a crystal clear personal life vision. I've never asked myself those questions, to I've never thought about creating those 3 states, from having a conductor and the scholar and the fun size warrior, or I've never thought about measuring my day in palms or anything in between. Whatever one of those things resonated, here's my challenge, because this podcast is ending. The moment it hits stop, set a 20-minute timer and focus on solving one of the things that resonated with you today. So there's no faster way to put this into practice and put this into progress. And so don't wait, don't procrastinate, do it now. And so we will either see you in the next episode or you will hear me in your earballs. But either way, this is where we end the show.